Dobre jutro.
Hello everyone, we are Kay and Xenia, the co-founders of online British English school Seon, and we are going to talk about the longest serving monarchy.
Yes.
Ken, what did you feel when you heard the news that the Queen didn't feel very well?
Very quickly I realised that it was serious. I think I remember messaging you, telling you that news had come through that the royal family had been asked to go to Balmoral where she was, and it very quickly became obvious that this was real, that this was actually happening. Of course, the Queen was an old lady. She was 96 years old. To die at 96 is hardly a surprise, but I don't think there was anything really to suggest that her dying was imminent. We knew that she was getting more. She was slowly starting to suffer from more ill health, and obviously had since her husband died. And only a few days before, her engagements were being cut back. But I think it was a surprise. It was quite a shock that it seems to have happened quite quickly. It's,
From the moment you got to know there was something happening to the moment she was actually dead.
She died.
It was not a long time. Right?
And I have to, I think most British people would always have spent some time thinking about, the Queen will die, the Queen will die. I don't think anyone expected it to happen when it happened, and I think we were all caught by surprise. And certainly myself, I was surprisingly upset. I felt upset. I felt sort of tears in my eyes, and I felt that this was a woman who was on the throne when I was born. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter what's happened in the world or happened in my life or happened in British life, she was always there. Yeah. The Queen was the Queen. It was like a wall that never went away. And I think that really hit home to everybody. I think we always knew that. I think as a country we always knew that. The Queen was always very popular, even if you speak to a lot of people who are anti-monarchy or anti-monarchist. There's a lot of people in the UK and around the world who are anti what monarchy represents. I think, to be fair, our monarchy, the British monarchy, doesn't really represent what the negative connotations are with monarchy. Yeah. It's a benign monarchy in many ways. But you asked me the question, what did I feel? I was shocked, I was very sad, and I was glued. I spent all day glued to the news, waiting for it to happen.
And as you said that she was always in your life. I think it's also the same not only for Brits, but let's say for other people, because let's say for Russians, we always learned at school London is the capital of Great Britain, and there is Queen Elizabeth II. She was kind of always there for us as well. Well, not the same way, but still.
No, I'll tell you what was really interesting. In the world that we're in today, there's lots of different fractured relationships, and England and Britain has always had a fractured love-hate relationship with the French, with France. But to be fair, President Macron, I think he summed up the Queen perfectly. He said the French people stand with the British in their sorrow. To you, she was your Queen. To the rest of the world, she was the Queen. And everyone knew who she was. There are lots of monarchies around the world, and I think we would struggle to name one single person, one single one. I think the Netherlands have a monarchy. I think the Spanish have a monarchy, but it's nothing in comparison. It's like we had a super monarch. She was every rock and roll star, every top footballer, all rolled into one greatness.
What 3 words you would use to describe the Queen?
Queenie, wow. Steady, loyal, caring.
Steady, loyal, caring.
I think she was a rock all the way through her life. She has always been. The Queen was never really allowed to voice her opinions about anything. So you never really knew what the Queen thought about something or didn't. She was always opinionated. So in the world today, I'm sure she would have an opinion on what's going on in the world today, as we've all said.
Nobody would know.
But but she would always play this neutral role of trying to get people to calm down, to recognise that better times will come, it always happens, and she just gives us this spirit, this strength. I think the world lost a monarch.
Yeah.
She was our queen, but she was the queen, and everybody knew who she was. You'd have to go into the jungles of deepest, darkest Africa to find someone who doesn't know who the hell she was.
Have you ever seen the Queen?
Yes, I was a little boy. I've never met the Queen, but I saw her when I was 12. 12? I'm trying to think when the Silver Jubilee. My mother made me go and camp out on the Mall. So on the Mall that runs up the road that runs up to the Victoria statue and then in front of Buckingham Palace, and we were right. So the circle here with Victoria is in, then you've got the Mall running up here, and we were sat here for the Silver Jubilee. And I always remember, I don't know where, I mean, photographs of them I won't have anymore, but I do remember having photographs of them. And I remember it being bloody cold. I remember it fucking raining. And my mum and I went with my mum and my brother, and my mum's friend and her 2 children, who I still know. One of them, Martin, is still a friend of mine, but I still know him. And we had deck chairs, and we were made to sleep on them all bloody night.
Yeah.
And we were put in bin liners. Rubbish bin bags. We looked like it was ridiculous, and to try and protect us from the rain and stuff. And I remember it. I remember the whole ceremony. I remember the carriage going past and her in it, and the Queen was painting. I knew, well, that's the Queen.
So you were 12, and she was approximately, how old was she?
Well, the Silver Jubilee's 25, wasn't it? So she would have been 50. So it was 40 years ago. More than 40. It was more than 40 years ago. So. We just had that. Interestingly enough, I was in the UK during the recent Jubilee.
You
I was there. Yeah. I was getting annoyed because nobody was working, and I didn't realise it was happening. And I ended up being stuck in a hotel in London, paying exorbitant prices.
Listen, there are rumours that she died before it was announced.
It's interesting. Look, the thing is with rumours, there's always rumours. It doesn't matter what happens, there's always going to be a side who wants to say something and go. One, I don't really think it matters whether it's true or not. It's no conspiracy theory. Queen's dead. No one killed her. It's not like the Diana scenario. Is it possible that she was already dead? I think it's possible, yeah. Why would they do that? Because I think it would have been a real shock for everyone to wake up one morning, the Queen's dead. At least this way we were prepared for it.
Yeah.
It was obvious, the news started rolling, the royal family were called to Balmoral where the Queen was, and everybody was watching it throughout the day, expecting it to happen.
Yeah. As
I wrote to you in a text message, I think this is really happening. And I mean, I felt I was living through history. So even if it was true that she was already dead in the morning and they just spun this out until the afternoon, then they really did it just to spare the world the shock of just waking up one morning and fuck, she's gone.
Yeah. All this year is a huge piece of history.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's really interesting because I always worried. It's really that whole week, those 10 days from the day she died and then up until the funeral. I mean, we were here together. I was glued to the BBC the whole day, from the moment I woke up until the end, until the coffin went down and it was all over. I watched every single moment on the BBC. It was the least I think that I could do for, I wasn't there in the UK, so I don't really know what it was like. But I think it's a significant moment for the world. I think we'll be okay. I think a lot of people, I think it's been very hard for Charles.
Yeah.
I mean, the Queen was the longest serving monarch in the world, I think, and certainly British monarch. Charles was the longest waiting.
Oh yeah.
He was the longest next in line. And the truth is, we're never going to see this again. I mean, I'm trying to think of an event where we could, and let's assume that the monarchy carries on in a very similar format. It may or may not. I think we recognise how important the monarchy is and how much the world also loves the monarchy and the British loves the monarchy from the death of the Queen. So I recognise that I doubt we're going to, and because it's a benign monarch, she doesn't really rule over us, she kind of serves us. The monarch serves us now, and that changed about three monarchs ago. Of course, monarchs used to rule over the place, whereas I think it was the Queen's grandfather who was the king. He became the first one to serve as a king, as opposed to a. I think we're in service monarchy now, but I think the world recognises how important the monarchy is. And I suspect it will carry on, but we'll never see anything like this again. Charles is 73, so even if he lives to the same age as his mum, 96, even if he lives to the same age as the Queen mum, who was 100 and something, he doesn't have long. It's only 20 odd years. By which time William, who's already 40, will be 60, 65. So he'll be younger than Charles is now, but he'll still be older than I am now when he gets to the throne. So even if he lived till he's 100, it's again only 25 years, 30 years. So something very significant would have to happen. So you have to remember that the king died quite suddenly, which and relatively unexpectedly, which is why she is on the throne, and she was 25 years old. So we had that opportunity. The chances of seeing another monarch in their 20s who could potentially rule as long as the Queen has, something very, very serious there'd have to be an assassination of Philip, and William and George, or whatever his name is, would have to ascend to the throne like next week.
Something like that.
So I think we're never going to, we live in a world where lots of people say we'll never see the likes again, we'll never see anything like it again, and it's quite an overused phrase, but I think where the Queen is concerned, I think it's appropriate. I don't think we'll ever see anything like her again, ever. In any life, not your lifetime, not mine, not my children, not Dima's lifetime, not even our grandchildren's lifetime, will we see the likes of this woman again.
So guys, press like and subscribe our channel. It's our first video on YouTube. See you in the next one.
Rest in peace, Queenie. Thank you.